The morning ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, quietly reflecting the bright copper sun as the massive aircraft carrier USS Valor glided through calm waters. The ship was alive, engines humming, jets being secured for drills, sailors marching in formation, yet in the middle of all that intensity stood a single man who didn't quite seem to belong. He walked slowly, each step steady, like his body remembered movements his age now resisted. His faded navy cap sat low over his weathered face, and his jacket carried a few old service pins, the kind people glance at, respect for a moment, then forget. His name was Walter Hayes. Though his presence seemed harmless, the few who actually looked saw something unmistakable in his posture, dignity not learned but earned. He had come at the invitation of a young lieutenant named Carter, who admired him greatly. Carter had heard whispers of Walter's service, mysterious missions in forgotten waters, long nights tracking unknown threats, and leadership that could calm even the fiercest storms. But there were never any medals, records, or speeches. Just stories passed from one sailor to another, like legends meant to be remembered only by those who truly understood them. So when Walter stepped onto the deck, he did so humbly, with no expectation of glory. He simply bowed his head as sailors saluted politely, unsure why an old man was walking among them on a day scheduled for high-security operations. Walter never tried explaining his presence. He knew that those who needed to know would. Those who didn't never would. At the top command platform stood Admiral Pierce, a man whose authority was as sharp as his gaze. With iron discipline and a reputation for intolerance toward anything unpredictable, Pierce controlled the ship with absolute command. When he noticed Walter among his crew, his brows tightened instantly. "Who authorized a civilian to enter my deck?" he barked. Lieutenant Carter hurried over. "Sir, he's not just a civilian, he's a retired naval commander." Pierce cut him off with a quick glance at Walter. "Retired or not, this is no museum. We are preparing for classified operations. Remove him immediately." Carter looked helpless, but rules were rules. He bowed his head and gestured toward the exit. Walter did not protest. He simply nodded and began moving toward the side of the ship where a small escort boat waited to take him back to shore. No emotion crossed his expression. He had been ordered around before by storms, by war, by fate, and he never walked away bitter. As he made his slow way off deck, curious sailors watched. Few recognized his face, but more than a handful recognized the faded patch on his jacket, a symbol from a unit that didn't officially exist. Eyes widened, whispers passed quietly, but no one dared speak loudly enough for the Admiral to hear. To Pierce, Walter was just a ghost from a past that didn't matter anymore. The Admiral believed only in present authority. Age was weakness, and weakness belonged nowhere near his ship. Yet there was something different about Walter that none of them could fully understand, a silent confidence, a quiet alertness, as though his senses still scanned the ocean for danger the way they had decades ago. His hearing, though old, caught details others ignored. The pitch of engines, the rhythm of the waves, something distant, something stirring beneath the surface. Just as the escort boat began pulling away, Walter paused. He turned back for a moment, his eyes narrowing at the horizon. There was a sound so low that no one else on the deck seemed to notice. A deep, underwater groan. The currents shifted. Walter whispered to himself, still there. Nobody heard him. The sailors returned to their tasks, preparing for scheduled maneuvers. Admiral Pierce resumed supervising operations, believing the matter closed. Carter looked toward the water, guilt gnawing at him, but he obeyed his superior's command. Minutes passed, then the ocean began to change. A low vibration rippled across the water. At first, everyone assumed it came from their own engines, but the shaking deepened, distant yet powerful, the way thunder sounds just before a storm. The surface began shifting, circular ripples spreading with unnatural precision. A radar operator shouted from the command station, "Sir, movement below us." Pierce hurried over. "We have no scheduled vessels in proximity. Identify." The operator's voice trembled. "It's very large, sir," rising fast. The deck fell silent. Sailors rushed to the railing, eyes fixed on the churning patch of water behind the departing boat carrying Walter. Moments later, with a roar of displaced sea, A massive black form erupted from the depths, a nuclear submarine. Completely silent, no warning, no authorization, the carrier shook. Water sprayed into the air like a geyser. Men stumbled back, stunned. Pierce's voice cracked. Who ordered that submarine up? No one answered. The submarine's hatch opened slowly, and from its deck, sailors emerged standing in formation, facing the small boat carrying the old man. Lieutenant Carter stared, speechless, there, saluting him. The Admiral's face went pale. Confusion turned to shock, shock into anger, and anger into fear. In that moment, every man on the USS Valor understood one thing clearly. The old veteran they had just dismissed was not just a guest. He was someone the deepest shadows of the Navy still answered to, and the ocean itself seemed to rise at his return. Something long forgotten had come back to the surface. The escort boat carrying Walter slowed as the ocean beneath it trembled. A thin mist rose from the surface, twisting like a living thing. Sailors on the USS Valor stared in disbelief, speechless as the enormous nuclear submarine continued to break through the water. It rose with such precision and silence that even the seasoned officers felt a chill run beneath their uniforms. Admiral Pierce's jaw tightened. This was impossible. No submarine, especially one of this classified design, would surface without orders. The very ocean seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a reason. The submarine's massive body gleamed under the morning sun, black and imposing like a guardian emerging from the deep. The hatch atop its tower opened slowly, almost respectfully, and then figures stepped into view. A small team of sailors stood up straight, forming a perfect line. They didn't salute the aircraft carrier. They didn't acknowledge the Admiral. They turned and saluted the old man in the little boat. Walter's boat drifted to a stop. Time did too on deck, Lieutenant Carter whispered, trying to understand what he was seeing. "Sir, the crew, they're saluting Commander Hayes." Pierce spun toward him. "Commander, he's a civilian," but the submarine sailors held their salute unwaveringly. One of them, a tall officer with sharp eyes, stood at the front. He shouted across the water with a commanding voice, carrying easily over the waves. Requesting permission to speak with Commander Hayes. The Admiral felt his throat tighten. This had turned from a minor annoyance into a crisis, one he did not understand. Permission denied. Pierce yelled back. "I am the commanding officer here." The officer on the submarine straightened. "With respect, sir, our orders were to follow Commander Walter Hayes until further instruction. We answer to him." The deck of the USS Valor erupted in whispers. Sailors exchanged stunned glances, unsure whether they were witnessing a breach of protocol or the unearthing of a secret never meant to be seen. Admiral Pierce felt anger twist inside him, but beneath it was something unfamiliar, fear. How is that possible?" he muttered. Walter, still standing calmly on his small boat, lifted a hand. His gesture was gentle, commanding no force. Yet everyone fell silent. The tiny vessel made its way back toward the massive carrier. The submarine crew remained still, saluting until Walter stepped again onto the deck of the USS Valor. The moment his foot touched steel, the submarine crew lowered their salute in perfect unison, as if acknowledging the return of a leader. Pierce stormed toward him. "What game are you playing, old man?" Walter met his stare with quiet patience. "No game, simply a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," Pierce barked. "A classified nuclear submarine surfaced without my command. Its captain is taking orders from you. Explain yourself." Now, Walter's gaze turned toward the submarine. "They aren't here because of me. They are here because of what's coming." The Admiral stiffened. "What is coming?" "Something old," Walter replied. "Something dangerous." Pierce scoffed, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty. Walter turned toward the deck crew. "You all think the ocean sleeps beneath you, but it never sleeps. It remembers. The sea holds deeper secrets than any of us care to admit, and when an old threat moves, those who once guarded these waters feel it." His words were calm, but there was gravity in them. Weight formed from years of experience, not rumor. Lieutenant Carter stepped closer. "Sir, how did they know to come?" Walter touched the faded patch on his jacket. "This emblem doesn't exist in your records, but those who have worn it share an oath beyond retirement. We serve until the sea stops calling, and the sea just made its call." Before anyone could ask more, alarm sirens wailed across the deck. Red lights flashed as radar operators scrambled. Unidentified object approaching. The crew rushed to their stations. Pierce jumped to the nearest console. Another submarine. The radar operator shook his head, pale. "No, sir. We don't know what it is. It's fast. Very fast. It's coming from deep, and it's not responding to any signals." The Admiral's body tensed, raised defense alert. Sailors sprinted across the deck, shouting commands. Fighter jets were prepped, though none were fully armed. The carrier was not ready for an immediate confrontation. Walter stepped up beside Pierce. "You're about to face something you've never trained for. Let me help." Pierce glared. "You are retired. You are not authorized. Your authorization won't matter." Walter interrupted softly. "Whatever is coming will not respect rank. Only readiness." The submarine below sent a transmission. A calm voice echoed through speakers. "Commander Hayes awaiting orders." Pierce stared at Walter, anger clashing with confusion. Why would they listen to you? Walter paused for a long moment. "Because I was their first commander. I helped build that vessel when the program was just a dream. I trained every man who serves on it. They are my family." Something in Pierce shifted. Respect fought its way through his pride. The radar operator shouted again. Object now within 10 nautical miles. Still no ID. The water began to ripple violently. The sky dimmed slightly as dark clouds gathered overhead without warning. The calm morning had transformed into a battlefield waiting to unfold. The submarine dove immediately, responding to Walter's unseen signal. Its black form slid beneath the waves faster than the eye could follow. Pierce looked at Walter. "What do we do?" Walter's voice was low. "Prepare. The ocean is stirring because something beneath it recognizes me, not as an enemy, but as the one who stopped it long ago." Pierce stared, stunned. "You've faced this before." Walter nodded slowly. "I hoped it would never wake again." The sailors around them froze, listening with silent fear. The ocean groaned, deep, ancient, angry, and everyone understood then. Walter Hayes wasn't just a forgotten veteran. He was the only man the sea itself remembered. The alarms continued blaring as officers scrambled to make sense of the threat moving beneath them. The radar screen pulsed with a red streak cutting through the ocean at an impossible speed. It didn't match any known submarine, any vessel, or any underwater craft the U.S. Navy had on record. No responding signal, no identification, only a silent approach. Admiral Pierce clenched the edge of the console, feeling his control slipping away while Walter Hayes stood beside him, calm, almost eerily so, as if he had expected this moment for years. "What is it?" Pierce demanded, his voice trembling. Walter didn't answer immediately. He closed his eyes, listening as though the hum of the ocean itself was speaking to him. Then he opened them slowly. "It's following an echo." He said, "Something we tried to bury decades ago." Pierce frowned. "Makes sense, Hayes." Walter studied the Admiral's face, then the frantic crew. He knew trust was scarce, but time was even scarcer. "There was a mission many years back," Walter said, "classified far deeper than nuclear weapons, deeper than any file you could access even at your rank." Lieutenant Carter, who had been quietly listening, leaned forward. "What mission?" Walter seemed to sink into old memories as he spoke. "We were called the Deep Patrol Unit. Officially, we never existed. Our job was to observe and neutralize anomalies, things normal warfare couldn't explain. We watched over signals coming from beneath the ocean floor, signals that didn't belong to us, or to any country." The room fell silent, except for the wail of alarms and the faint trembling beneath them. One of those signals came from the Mariana region. Walter continued. Something had awakened. It wasn't a machine, not a vessel. It was a biological intelligence, too big to capture, too silent to track with normal equipment. It communicated through the water, pulses, almost like sonar. Pierce stared at him in disbelief. "We're dealing with a creature," Walter nodded, "but not just any creature. It was ancient, a leviathan that slept for centuries. When we found it, we thought we had killed it." Lieutenant Carter swallowed. "What happened? We didn't kill it. Walter said, "We only put it back to sleep, but before it went under, it left something behind a signal, not heard by us, but heard by others." Just as his last word fell, a violent jolt hit the USS Valor from below. The entire deck rattled. Alarms shrieked louder. Soldiers grabbed onto anything stable as equipment shook and rattled against the walls. The radar operator shouted, "The unknown object just passed directly beneath us. No impact detected. It avoided us." Pierce's eyes widened. "It avoided us. Why?" Walter answered quietly, "It's not interested in the carrier. It's searching for the signal, and I have that signal." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small, battered device, metallic, square, and covered in old scratches. Blue lights faintly pulsed along its surface. "What is that?" Pierce demanded. "An echo transmitter," Walter replied. "It holds the last frequency emitted when we forced the creature back into the deep. I kept it, in case it ever returned." Pierce's fear turned to frustration. "You were carrying a classified device on my ship and said nothing." Walter shook his head. "I didn't know it was awake, but I felt something the moment I boarded, a heaviness in the water, a movement old sailors used to speak of when storms came from nowhere." Carter looked at the device with curiosity mixed with dread. "Can it track the creature?" Walter nodded. "It can do more than that. It can communicate." Pierce stiffened. "You can talk to it." "Not in words," Walter said calmly, "but we can guide it or warn it. When we first encountered it, we learned it wasn't mindless. It responded to patterns, frequencies. We don't understand it fully, we never will, but it learned us." Another tremor hit the ship, softer this time. The lights flickered. Somewhere below deck, metal groaned. The nuclear submarine resurfaced rapidly near the carrier. Its captain radioed in, "Commander Hayes, sonar contact confirmed. Object is circling us, awaiting instruction." Pierce nearly shouted, "He's not in command. I am." But the submarine captain replied, "Firm and controlled, sir. With respect, only one man has faced this thing before. Our lives depend on him." A heavy silence followed. Pierce's face twisted, his pride bruised, but his fear undeniable. At last he turned toward Walter. "What do we do?" Walter took a step toward the communications control panel. "We bring it to us, but away from populated waters. If it breaches near land." He didn't need to finish. They all knew thousands could die. He activated the echo transmitter. The small device pulsed softly, releasing low frequency vibrations. The sound was too deep for human ears, but everyone felt it, the pressure in their bones, like the air thickening around them. The water responded instantly. A deep groan rolled beneath the ship, ancient and powerful. Waves rose higher, swirling like huge serpents around the carrier and submarine. Signal locked, Walter said. "It's coming." Carter swallowed. "Coming. How close?" "Closer than any of us would like." Walter answered. Pierce watched him work with surprising skill. Every movement was practiced, every decision deliberate. This wasn't a retired relic. This was a man who had never stopped serving. Walter spoke without looking up. "I never officially retired, Admiral. They let me disappear because this mission was never meant to exist. If the world learned what sleeps beneath its oceans, there would be panic." Pierce stared at him, stunned. "All this time, you've been waiting." Walter nodded, waiting, and praying it stayed asleep. The radar operator suddenly screamed, "Contact is rising. It's coming up fast." Every sailor froze. The submarine repositioned beneath the carrier. Jets were pulled back. No one breathed. The sea roared again, louder, closer, angrier, and the USS Valor braced for an encounter with a nightmare only one man ever survived. Walter Hayes held the small transmitter tight, his voice steady, his eyes unblinking, because he knew what was coming, and he knew only he could stop it again. The sea roared like a living beast as the unidentified presence passed beneath the USS Valor. The echo transmitter in Walter's hand glowed brighter, humming with a strange rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the pulses rippling through the water. The sailors stood frozen, eyes locked on the churning waves, while adrenaline replaced the quiet confidence that had filled the deck at dawn. Walter stepped forward, voice low yet commanding. "The creature remembers this signal. It recognizes it, not as a threat, but as authority." Admiral Pierce was pale. His voice cracked as he demanded, "Authority? You think you control that thing." Walter didn't answer immediately. His gaze was focused on the horizon where the water began to swirl violently. "I don't control it," he said at last, "but it knows me, and it learned to listen." The submarine sent another transmission from below. "Commander Hayes, object is holding position beneath us, awaiting further commands." Pierce clenched his fists, torn between disbelief and desperation. "This isn't protocol. This isn't how command works." Walter turned to him. "Admiral, we are far beyond protocol. The ocean doesn't bow to rank. It answers only to those it remembers." Before Pierce could respond, the sea erupted. A massive column of water shot upward, shaking the carrier like an earthquake. The sailors stumbled, some dropping to their knees. The radar screens flickered, unable to process the phenomenon. Then, silence. Calm spread across the water like a soft blanket, muffling even the wind. A strange peace settled, unnerving everyone. Walter closed his eyes and lifted the transmitter slightly. "He's listening." Lieutenant Carter whispered. Walter nodded. "It is intelligent. It knows hierarchy. Last time it listened to me because I didn't attack it. I warned it. I signaled that the surface was not its enemy, but something has awakened it again, something deeper than we imagined." The Admiral took a slow breath, finally surrendering his pride. "What do you need from us?" Walter opened his eyes. "Cooperation and trust." Without hesitation, Carter barked, "Aye, Commander." The Admiral looked around. His crew, his own men, seemed ready to follow Walter. Perhaps they already believed in him more than in their own commanding officer. Pierce swallowed hard and nodded. "Very well. You have command." Walter stepped toward the center deck where the communications hub stood. He connected the transmitter to the carrier's frequency output, amplifying its signal. The deep pulses grew stronger, rumbling through the hull. Far below, the submarine repositioned, drifting in formation as if guided by an unseen hand. Walter spoke into the mic, but his words weren't commands to humans. His tone was rhythmic, almost chant-like, matching the cadence of the device. "These sounds carry meaning," he explained between vibrations. "They tell it that we are not the threat. They tell it to return to the deep." Pierce stared, almost mesmerized. "You learned this language." Walter shook his head. "No one learns it. You feel it." The ocean responded. A low groan echoed from below, mournful, ancient. The waves pulsed with the rhythm of the device, as though sea and signal were dancing to the same song. But then, something changed. A sharp pulse sliced through the water, strong enough to make every sailor wince. The radar operator gripped the console. "New signal detected. Interference. Foreign transmission." Walter's eyes hardened. That's what awakened it. "What is it?" Carter asked. "Someone else is calling it." "Who?" Walter's jaw tightened. "Someone who shouldn't." A second, more aggressive pulse came from the depths. The sea roared again, angrier this time. The creature churned violently, pushing water upward in massive waves that slammed against the carrier. "Brace!" Carter shouted. The deck pitched. Sailors clung to anything bolted down. Jets slid in their locks. The entire ship groaned as though straining to stay afloat. Pierce shouted over the chaos, "If someone else is calling it, can you override?" Walter steadied himself, gripping the transmitter. "No, but I can guide it." He increased the signal strength, pushing against the foreign frequency. A physical tension formed in the air, like pressure compressing every chest. "There," the radar operator pointed. "The creature is shifting. It's following your signal. It's moving away from the interference." Walter exhaled. "Good, good." But before relief could settle, a deafening crack pierced the air. The submarine burst from the water, shot upward by a violent surge below. Its hull slammed hard against the waves, nearly capsizing. The sub's captain radioed in, breathless. "Pressure spike. We're losing control." Walter shouted into the mic, "Hold your depth. Stay aligned with the signal." Pierce grabbed Walter's shoulder. "We're risking lives." Walter cut him off. "If we don't guide this creature back, it will destroy everything above the waterline. The submarine knows the risk. They follow because they trust." The foreign signal suddenly stopped, cutting out like a severed wire. The hostile interference was gone. The ocean calmed slightly, though the creature remained restless. Walter lowered the frequency, sending a final pulse. Gentle, steady, reassuring. Then, slowly, the waves flattened. The deep groan faded. The massive presence began sinking back into the depths, following the familiar echo. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the radar operator whispered, "It's gone," descending beyond tracking range. A breath seemed to escape from every chest at once. The submarine resurfaced steadily, damaged but afloat. Its crew climbed onto deck, exhausted but alive. Walter powered down the transmitter. As he did, a faint sadness crossed his face. It shouldn't have woken yet, he murmured. Someone, called it intentionally. Pierce faced him humbled. Why would anyone do that? Walter looked out over the water, eyes dark as the deep. Some believe the ocean hides weapons more powerful than bombs. They are wrong. Carter asked softly, "Then what does it hide?" Walter answered faintly, "Guardians, older than us, stronger than us, and kinder," until provoked. Silence settled. The Admiral cleared his throat. "You saved us. You saved all of us. I misjudged you." Walter shook his head. "You judged what you saw. That's human." Pierce bowed his head. Slowly, respectfully, "Thank you, Commander." Walter didn't smile. He simply looked toward the horizon where the creature had vanished. "Remember," he said softly, "the sea is not our enemy. It's our teacher, and sometimes our protector." The submarine crew saluted him one last time. Sailors on the Valor followed. Then Walter placed the transmitter in Lieutenant Carter's hands. "Guard this. One day, another call may come, and someone must answer." Carter nodded, solemn. Walter stepped onto the small escort boat once more. No ceremony, no applause, just quiet respect as he drifted away. The Admiral watched him depart, whispering, "Some heroes don't seek the surface. They guard the depths." The ocean shimmered calmly again, as if closing its ancient eyes, and the USS Valor sailed on, carrying a secret only the sea could fully understand.